Gustave Saint-Germain, the vice director of the publishing company Daily Days, enters a dimly lit room in complete disarray. Books and many kinds of documents are scattered along the table. His assistant, Carol, is sitting between them. To explain the mess, she reveals that she's doing research about a series of curious stories that started in November 1930. Appalled and minorly disappointed, Gustave reminds Carol of a conversation they had during a train ride. It started when Carol was amazed by the sight of the rainbow from the train window. Instead of humoring Carol, Gustave challenged her with the question, "Have you ever thought why people associate a rainbow with a dreamlike object rather than a bad omen?" Carol answered that it doesn't matter because as journalists, their job is only to relay information to the public. Gustave wasn't impressed with this answer. Now he re-challenges Carol. "Why do you choose November 1930 as the beginning of the story?" Carol confidently answers that it catches people's attention first when they come across the story. However, Gustave is still not impressed, as he believes that the chronology doesn't matter that much. He proceeds to mention some people who have the potential to be the main characters. For example, Isaac Dean and Miria Harvant, a couple of peculiar robbers. There's also Czeslaw Meyer, or Ches, an immortal, wretched young boy. But it turns out that Carol already has someone in mind. Firo Procinezzo, another immortal who's part of the Martiglio family of the Italian Camorra. The reason for this is that he simply looks fit for the main character. Gustave laughs at Carol's answer, admitting that it might be true to some extent, but he instantly gets serious in a few seconds. According to his belief, although there's one event, there are as many sides of the story as the people involved in it. Carol quickly understands what Gustave just said. He wants the story to start with the conflict between the Mafia families. Gustave smirks. He looks at Carol with a mischievous smile and suggests the story begins with them. The story jumps to the year 1931. We see Gustavo Baghetta, the Mafia caporegime of the Runorata family, fervently ordering a group of hired assassins to kill every member of the Gandor and Martillo families without leaving any survivors. But before Gustavo can even finish his grandiose speech, Bartolo Runorata, the godfather of the family, calls him in. The look on his face doesn't show a bit of pleasure. This can only mean bad news for Gustavo. Nervously, Gustavo explains his plan, which includes getting their hands on a new type of bomb in order to destroy the Gandor family. He also reveals that they've managed to take out Luc Gandor, one of the three Gandor brothers who are at the top of the hierarchy within their family. However, in the middle of his explanation, Bartolo cuts him and gives him a more important order: to find a man named Dallas Genoard. Apparently, Gustavo had killed Dallas's father and brother without consulting Bartolo first. The problem is that Dallas found evidence that Gustavo did it, meaning Gustavo did a rudimentary job. This is why Bartolo sounds so irritated. He now orders Gustavo to track Dallas and bring him in dead or alive. After Bartolo leaves the room, Gustavo passes the new order to the waiting assassins outside, and suddenly, all the talk about wiping out the Gandors and Martillos earlier gets utterly ignored. Meanwhile, in the Gandors HQ, called the Coraggioso, Luc Gandor, alive and well, is talking with his brothers Berger and Keith when one of their men urgently barges in to inform them that their gambling hall, bar and ticket office have been raided once again. They manage to capture a culprit to be interrogated. As expected, he's associated with the Runoratas. The culprit, who thought Luc was dead, almost jumps out of his skin upon seeing him alive. He swears to tell the Gandors anything after getting beaten to a pulp. Therefore, Luc steps forward and asks who attacked him earlier. It is then revealed that some time before this, Luc was having a casual conversation with Firo in a bookshop. Since the Gandors and Martillo are on good terms, Firo ensured Luc that he'd help when Runorata messes with the Gandors again. Luc told Firo not to worry because he'd called a legendary assassin named Claire Stanfield, also known as Vino, to help his family deal with the situation. Claire was set to board a train called Flying Pussyfoot from Chicago the next day. Coincidentally, Firo's acquaintances, Isaac and Miria, were also planning to board the same train. So, Firo and Luc made a promise to pick them up together at the Grand Central Terminal. Abruptly, some men in suits arrived at the bookstore and started shooting Firo and Luc with their machine guns. Both didn't even make any effort to dodge the bullets. They accepted their fate, just like that. But miraculously, in just a few seconds, they both stood up again as if nothing just happened. Firo even had the strength to chase one of the shooters and kick him in the face. The next day, the Gandor brothers, Firo's mentor, Miser Avaro, and Firo's homunculus lover Ennis were gathering at the Grand Central Terminal, waiting together for the Flying Pussyfoot to arrive. From what Ennis had heard, there was a mechanical problem with the train, so the train might not come intact. Nevertheless, a few moments later, most passengers arrived safely at the station. However, some didn't make it and fell from the train in the middle of nowhere instead. For example, Lad Russo and Lua Klein, a strange couple. arguably even more peculiar than Isaac and Miria. When approached by the police, Lad apologized to Lua for not killing her sooner had he known the situation would turn out like this. He even offered to kill her right there. Lua just cried and hesitated, which caused Lad to get mad. There was also Shane Laforet, a mysterious woman who got stranded in the river. Thankfully, Isaac and Miria were totally safe and sound. They cheerfully hugged Firo, Misa, and Ennis as they reunited. Misa also welcomed Ches, who turned out to be his acquaintance. Up to this point, everything still seems obscure and subtle. Questions might arise. How is this connected to this? What are these people actually part of? What is the real conflict? And so on. Buckle up because the real story will shortly begin. Just as Gustav suggested, it won't fully stick to the chronology. However, rest assured that the truth will be revealed, so make sure you stick around until the end. First, let's begin from the year 1930 in California. The peculiar couple, Isaac and Miria, are residing in a cave because the free-spirited Isaac is convinced they're going to find gold there. Yet after 9 months of digging, they still don't find anything precious. One day, they receive a letter from Ennis. Through that letter, she expresses her longing for the couple. Miria gets emotional as she reads that Ennis thinks about them as her brother and sister. After some discussion, they decide to get some souvenirs and bring them to Ennis in New York. But since they're broke, they'll rob some evil mafia beforehand. So the next thing we know, they dress themselves in baseball uniforms. Using their bats as their weapons, they hit 2 mafia members and rob them of their cash. Then on December 30th, they arrive at the train station in Chicago to depart the Flying Pussyfoot. At the train station, they notice some interesting stuff. Most importantly, the existence of 2 groups that look like the total opposite of each other. One group is dressed in all black outfits. They claim to be orchestral musicians, so they persuade the train security guards to let some of their members stay on the freight train in order to protect their instruments. Chain can be seen in this group. The other group consists of people wearing all white. They're led by Lad Russo, an assassin of the Russo family. Lad notices that Senator Manfred Berium's wife and daughter, Natalie and Mary, are also preparing to get on the train. He later makes an ominous remark about mashing the poor passengers thoroughly, and then laughs like a psychopath. There's actually another group that's kind of overlooked by Isaac and Miria. It's a small group of robbers that's part of a larger delinquent gang led by Jacuzzi Splot. It's safe to say that Jacuzzi is an anomaly because this guy is a huge scaredy cat and crybaby. He acts like it's the end of the world after finding out that the musicians have taken over the luggage car. His 3 allies, Donnie, Nick and Nice, have to calm him down, ensuring him that the thing they're eyeing is in a different luggage room. In another corner, someone tells Cheslaw that he had created a hidden space in the baggage car, and no one will know about it unless there's some kind of explosion. Cheese just smirks after hearing that. There are 3 conductors on this train, the senior one, the middle-aged one, and the young one. Before departure, Tony, the senior conductor, reveals to the other 2 that he's retiring soon, so he's passing the baton to the young conductor, who's treated him with nothing but deep respect. Sadly, a few moments later, a member of the Russo family named June grabs Tony while he's walking and kills him. June does this only to get the conductor uniform, which he later proudly presents to Lad. Later on in his office, Senator Berium gets informed that the train has departed on time. His assistant also reports that they've placed the thing as far away as the first-class car as possible. Since the assistant is worried about Senator Berium's family, he tries to propose a solution. However, the senator coldly refuses it, saying that this thing is more important than his family. Now the Flying Pussyfoot is on its route to New York. Jacuzzi and Nice are having a discussion with John and Fang, the train's bartender and chef respectively, who appear to be their allies. Their conversation suggests that the gang is supposed to steal a type of bomb. As they're talking, they notice Isaac and Miria laughing loudly, munching at the corner of the bar table. Well, who wouldn't notice such an eccentric couple? Nice encourages Jacuzzi to talk to them in order to overcome his social anxiety. Although Jacuzzi is terrified, the couple welcomes him with an open mind. It's not long until all of them become friends with each other. Suddenly, Chess accidentally hits Jacuzzi as he runs around the car with his new friend Mary Berium. Mary's mum Natalie comes to apologize to him. Obviously, Jacuzzi doesn't mind. Knowing him, it's more likely he'd apologize first if he could. Because of this event, Natalie, Mary and Ches end up having a small talk with the group, introducing their names and stuff. Strangely, after introducing his name, Ches wonders why he could only say his real name. He thinks there must be another immortal in the car other than him. Then out of nowhere, Isaac and Miriam bring up the story of the rail tracer. According to the urban legend, a rail tracer is a monster that follows a train and swallows its passengers gradually until everyone vanishes. There's one way to prevent the monster from coming, but of course Isaac and Miria don't remember what it is. This story causes Jacuzzi to tremble in fear while John tries to calm him down. John remembers that the young conductor once talked about this legend as well, so he probably knows how to repel the rail tracer. Without thinking twice, Jacuzzi runs to the conductor's room to ask for it himself. Coincidentally, the young conductor and his colleague are having the same conversation about the rail tracer in the caboose. At first, the other conductor only tosses the story aside as a mere tale. However, he suddenly gets serious. Then turning slowly to the young conductor, he claims that it's actually a ghost story about the Lemurs. In one car, Goose Perkins, the boss of the black-suited group, gathers his people. This group calls themselves the Lemurs. They have one ultimate goal: to gain immortality from Huey Laforet, their immortal great leader who has been captured by Senator Barium. But naturally, they need to free Huey first. So in order to accomplish that, they're going to hold the passengers hostage, including the senator's wife and daughter, and use them to force the senator into complying with their conditions. The middle-aged conductor, who turns out to be a lemur, reveals all this information to the young conductor. He then takes out his revolver from his pocket, aims it at the young conductor, and the next thing we know, a gunshot is heard. Somewhere in another cabin, Lua and Lad are happily dancing as Lad makes an unsettling promise about killing everyone first and then Lua last. What makes it more unsettling is the fact that Lua seems content about it. Suddenly another white suit comes in to inform Lad that Vicky has started his act, so Lad decides to make a move as well since he can't contain his urge to kill. When he exits his cabin, Jacuzzi accidentally rams into him. Lad immediately recognizes Jacuzzi as the person in the wanted poster he saw before getting on the train. On Jacuzzi's way, he comes across Nick and Donnie. Shortly after Jacuzzi continues running again, Nice manages to catch up to them. She then orders Donnie to come with her to pursue Jacuzzi and examine the luggage room. On the other hand, Nick is told to deal with the dining car. Nick then gets himself prepared. He pulls out his knife and enters the dining car, threatening the passengers not to move. Apparently, at the same time, the Lemurs also enter the car from the other side, making a similar threatening gesture, except they're carrying fancy guns instead of a single knife. It doesn't stop there. Vicky, the member of the Russo family mentioned earlier, shouts to scare the passengers from the middle of the car. A three-way hijack is happening. Well, it quickly becomes a two-way since Nick immediately backs off, knowing he doesn't stand a chance against his opponent's fire weapons. Meanwhile, Jacuzzi has already arrived at the conductor's room. He trembles in horror seeing the dead bodies of the two conductors, mangled and all bloody. The young conductor's face isn't even recognizable anymore. Jacuzzi can only convince himself that it's rail tracers doing. Now let's go back some time before the train departure. But still in the year 1931, some men dispatched by the Runoratas are visiting the Daily Day's office to look for information regarding Dallas Genoard's whereabouts. Once they enter the building, Nicholas Wayne, the company's information broker, cheerfully greets them before demanding $500 in exchange for the info about Dallas. Of course, the dispatched men get mad at how ridiculous that condition is. They're about to take out their guns to threaten Nicholas. However, the employees in that office are quicker than them. Each of them aims their gun at the men, ultimately driving them away. Coincidentally, Eve Genoard, Dallas's younger sister, arrives at Daily Days at the same time the Runoratas walk away from it. Not to mention that she's coming with the same intention as those men, which is to find her brother. She's accompanied by her servants, Samantha and Benjamin. Unlike the Runorata's men though, she's surprisingly welcomed warmly by the staff. She's taken to a room where they meet Elian Dugo, Nicholas's colleague. After spending a few moments chit-chatting, another employee comes with a report. Elian reads it. His expression changes as he goes through the text. This just makes Eve more curious. Sadly, in the end, Elian concludes that they don't know what happened to Dallas. After Eve and her servants leave, Nicholas talks to Elian. It seems like there's really something in that report that points to Dallas's whereabouts, which unfortunately can't be revealed to Eve. Elian feels bad about it. However, Nicholas tries to convince him that they're not necessarily lying. The one who apparently lies is Bartolo Runorata. He tricked Gustavo into believing that Dallas had proof of Gustavo killing his family members. Let's go back even further, year 1930. A building is engulfed in flames after two foolish men decide to play around with fire inside. Little do they know that in the basement of that building, a chemist named Barnes has just completed his elixir of immortality that he's experimented with for so long. He's managed to concoct a plenty amount, but due to the fire, he can only secure a crate filled with 2 bottles of the elixir. Somewhere else, Firo and Miser bump into Isaac and Miria for the first time in a hat shop. After leaving the shop and walking for a while, they notice smoke coming from Barnes's building. The curious Firo runs to it. This is where Ennis accidentally runs into him, making this their first encounter. Ennis just makes a quick apology and continues running. Due to being in a hurry, she doesn't realize that her sleeve button fell off. Firo sees it, picks it up, and tries to chase her to return it. On his way, he sees Barnes getting beaten to a pulp by Dallas and his 3 cronies just because Dallas accidentally tripped on Barnes's leg. Not being able to stand that, Firo confronts and knocks them out. Then he approaches Barnes to make sure he's okay. After asking Barnes if he saw a woman of Ennis's traits around here and getting the answer, no, he goes to continue his pursuit. It seems like Barnes is safe for the moment. However, suddenly Dallas comes from behind him, kills him, and takes his elixir, thinking that it's liquor. A few moments later, by some miracle, the blood that's spilling from Barnes's corpse flows back to his body. His eyes make rapid movement, and all at once, he regains his life. When he's conscious, the first thing he sees is Ennis. Now let's go back a few moments earlier and shift our focus to Isaac and Miria. Remember the time they bump into Firo and Miser in a hat shop? They proceed to purchase a bunch of hats and masks to be used for their disguise after that. Then they walk away in a joyful mood as they talk about their pride in robbery, which they've been doing for 1 year already. Their happiness prompts them to dance casually in the middle of the street, ignoring any possible accident. And naturally, they get hit by a car. Apparently, the one who's driving the car is none other than Ennis, and she's carrying a man named Szilard Quates. Isaac and Miria are fine, thankfully, because the car wasn't going fast. Szilard just orders Ennis to ignore them and hit the gas. They arrive at an old building with a secret passage that leads to a private gathering room filled with old men who seemingly look up to Szilard. Once inside, Szilard announces that the production of the cure-all elixir, which grants immortality, has been completed, and it's in Barnes' hands. He then orders Ennis to pick up Barnes and reminds her not to hesitate to kill him had he touched the product, or the product got damaged. Later, Ennis successfully brings Barnes to Szilard after finding him in an alleyway where he got beaten by Dallas. However, Szilard questions why she didn't kill him, knowing he had consumed the immortality elixir. He proceeds to provoke the other old men not to forgive Barnes. There's one method he can use to gain Barnes' knowledge of the elixir, as well as his entire memory. With his right hand placed on Barnes' head, he sucks Barnes until he completely dissolves into non-existence. After doing this, he finds out that Barnes still has 2 bottles of the elixir saved. Unfortunately, they've been stolen, but since Szilard knows the faces of the thieves as gained from Barnes' memory, it shouldn't be a big deal to track them down. Szilard then orders Ennis to look for Dallas and the other 3 ruffians, the ones who took the elixir. Now let's get back to a few hours before the departure of the Flying Pussyfoot. In Chicago, the Don of the Russo family, Placido Russo, is complaining to his subordinates regarding their stolen cash. Apparently, they're the people whom Isaac and Miria robbed in their baseball uniforms. Not only that, the family's capo, Sidaris, has been found dead in a horrifying state, and the suspect is Jacuzzi. Suddenly, Lad, who turns out to be Placido's nephew, barges in. After taking pleasure in killing the Placido's subordinates, he proposes an idea. He'll take the Flying Pussyfoot that will depart that night and intimidate the railway company by saying that he'll crash the train to extort their money. And, if it doesn't work, he'll wipe out half of the passengers, forcing the company to ultimately pay them anyway. By doing that, he'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone, satisfying his need for killing and also getting back the money the family lost. Placido has no way to negotiate Lad's proposal because Lad has already gathered his team. They purposefully wear all white for the mission to show off the blood of the people they'll kill. So regarding Sidaris, this is what happened to him. He and other 2 Russo men have managed to catch and corner him in an alley, but they didn't expect Jacuzzi to be this cowardly at all. In the wanted poster, he looks all fierce with a sword-shaped tattoo on his face. But when cornered, he can only cry and cower, making the Russos doubt if he's actually the person they're looking for. They proceed to beat him up anyway. As they're expressing their anger, they reveal that Jacuzzi and his gang have caused so much trouble to the Russos. But in Jacuzzi's defense, it was the Russos who killed 8 of their people first. He desperately begs for the men to lower their guns because he doesn't want them to be killed. Of course, the Russo take this as a joke, but without their realization, Donnie and the other gang members have appeared behind them. Donnie crushes Sidaris' hand effortlessly, and without breaking a sweat, the other gang members help defeat the other 2. And now back to the Flying Pussyfoot. After Nick leaves the dining car, Vicky gets killed by the Lemures. Suddenly, Lad enters the car. First, he raises his arms, pretending to submit to the Lemures. He walks toward them slowly. When he's close enough to the forefront man, he takes over that Lemur's machine gun and starts shooting the other Lemures behind. He then proceeds to beat the Lemure in front of him mercilessly until his soul leaves his body. After getting the first bloodstain on his white suit, Lad approaches Natalie Berriam, who's trying to protect Mary and Ches in the corner. He declares that Natalie's turn will come after he's done finishing the black suits. He then leaves and tells his associates to leave the people in the car alone. Watching all of that unfold, Ches smirks as he thinks about using Lad. The person who has survived Lad and Vicky's attack is now back in the Lemur's cabin, explaining the situation to the other Lemurs. They still have no idea who the white suits actually are. In the middle of their discussion, Chain leaves the room unprovoked. Goose tells the others to let her be because she'll only live until tomorrow. At the same time, Lad also goes back to the white suits and tells the other what just happened. Likewise, they have no slightest idea about the Lemures. Lad then orders his subordinates to split up and finish as many Lemures as they can. Meanwhile, Nice and Donnie successfully catch up to Jacuzzi in the caboose. Jacuzzi rejoice in tears, only for them to bring bad news. As it appears, on their way to Jacuzzi, they saw Nick being captured by the Lemures and pulled into a room. Therefore, they decide to go save him. Back in the dining car, the senator's wife tells her daughter to go and hide with Ches. Soon after the two kids do so, the Lemures, including Goose, come from behind her, forcing her to come with them. They ask where Mary is, but Natalie lies by saying that the white suits have taken her away. Suddenly, Goose is distracted by an open window. According to an eyewitness, a woman in a working jumpsuit went outside through the window during the shooting. Later on, Goose contacts 3 of his men who are staying in the luggage car to look for the woman that matches the man's description. 2 men then leave the luggage room, but shortly after, one of them screams. He claims that his colleague has disappeared. As he trembles in terror, the light suddenly goes off. From the open window beside him, a shadowy figure appears and takes him away immediately. The one man left contacts the other black suits frantically to report what he's just seen, leaving the other Lemures confused. But before he can even explain further, the figure has come to get him and end his life in that instant. Now we're back again before the departure of the train in 1931. After his subordinates failed to extort information from the Daily Days, Gustavo throws a tantrum at them. He then decides to go to the newspaper company himself as he deems his subordinates incompetent. Unbeknownst to Gustavo, his own boss, Bartolo is making fun of him, calling him a disposable underling during his private conversation with Senator Manfred Berriam. Apparently, Manfred has already informed Bartolo that Dallas has become a partial immortal, meaning that he won't die from such things as wounds, but he might still die due to aging. This is because the elixir he consumed was still incomplete. Manfred also confesses that he's willing to throw away his humanity just so that he can obtain this so-called product. Gustavo now enters the Daily Day's office, welcomed by Nicholas, who already knows who Gustavo is. He cuts to the chase and extorts Nicholas out of the information about Dallas, not hesitating to use violence. This time, the other employees in the room are too scared to pull out their guns, but Nicholas is not stupid. He plays a trick by telling Gustavo that the Gandors are also after Dallas to make Gustavo feel threatened. He then provokes Gustavo to use Eve as bait. Later on, Nicholas is seen venting this matter to Helene. The latter blames him for putting Eve in danger. Behind a pile of documents, Gustav's voice can also be heard agreeing with Helene. However, in Nicholas's defense, there's nothing else he could do at that moment. That night, Gustavo and Rubik, his right-hand man, pay a sneaky visit to the Genoard's mansion to observe Eve. Gustavo orders Rubik to use any means to lure her out. Therefore, Rubik uses the telephone booth to call the mansion, pretending that he's from the Daily Days and has some information regarding Dallas that can only be said to Eve in person. Samantha picks up the phone and relays the message to Eve. Due to her desperation, Eve doesn't question it and heads out with the hope of meeting this person. However, as soon as she and Samantha step out of the mansion, Runorata's men approach them and kidnap Eve. The news about Eve's kidnapping reaches the Daily Days very soon. Elian and Gustav are still irritated at Nicholas for being the cause of that, but Nicholas tells them not to worry because he's already taken measures to prevent the worst. The story retracts again to the year 1930. Dallas is seen negotiating with Luck, persuading the latter to let the Gandors help him with his revenge on Firo. But Luck refuses, as he doesn't see any benefit in doing that. Luck bluntly tells Dallas that he's nothing but a decoy. Dallas is about to throw a fit hearing that, but Berger quickly beats him and his minions before kicking them from the Coraggioso. Unfortunately for Dallas, the immortality elixir he'd stolen from Barnes is left inside. Luck and Berger ultimately find it. They just think of it as liquor and store it away. As Dallas's group is leaving the alley they're getting tossed off to, they bump into Isaac and Miria, and for some petty reason, the two groups end up fighting. Coincidentally, Ennis is walking around the area. She notices Miria being held by one of Dallas's cronies and decides to check what's going on. Isaac is already on the ground getting all beaten up as he doesn't have the capability to face off all of them at the same time. Ennis decides to help Isaac, and single-handedly she finishes off the 4 delinquents. Ennis then realizes that Isaac and Miria are the couple she hit with a car that one time. Later on, she brings Dallas and the other 3 to Szilard's secret base where she's ordered to inject them with the incomplete immortality elixir. Elsewhere, after trying to chase Ennis and failing, Firo gathers with the Martillo family in their secret basement to start his initiation. Before being officially accepted, the Don tries to test Firo's capability first. The family makes him do a knife battle with Misa. Needless to say, he passes after managing to graze Misa's arm and make him bleed, but he notices something bizarre. Not long after the match ends, Misa's wound has healed perfectly, as if he was never hurt at all. Nevertheless, the Don is impressed with Firo's skills. He officially welcomes Firo to the family. Following the tradition, he fires a bullet to the ceiling as a form of celebration. But as soon as the gun is fired, a woman screams, "Isaac is dead!" from upstairs. Now it's time to go back to the flying pussyfoot again. Cez is trying to encourage Mary to hide in a narrow storage room by herself while he goes to check the situation. Mary trusts Ches. But as soon as the door closes, Ches is silently relieved that he's taken care of a nuisance. And now he's going to find the Immortals on this train. What Ches did turns out to be a big mistake because a few moments later, a Russo family member finds Mary in the closet. He tries to harass her while mumbling about how he likes to kill those weaker than him. Well, apparently this white suit is making a bigger mistake because surprisingly, Mary has come prepared. She uses a shard of glass to stab her attacker, and in an instant, the man is down. Suddenly, Chain appears, causing Mary to scream as loud as she can. At the same time, Jacuzzi, Nice and Donnie enter the room where was dragged into. Thankfully, Nick is safe inside. According to him, he was tied with 2 other white suits, one of them being Lua. Lad and his subordinates came to their rescue, but he refused to untie Nick. Once the gang exits the room, they immediately notice blood flowing out of the adjacent room. They keep observing it until the door opens, revealing Lad and the white suits. Lad proceeds to confront Jacuzzi, introducing himself as a Russo, the family that Jacuzzi recognizes. Lad then reveals his plan of overtaking the train and killing the passengers. Jacuzzi replies by asking if they're the ones who killed the conductors, to which Lad answers no. In fact, it's the first time Lad hears about the conductor's death. Since he finds it interesting, he decides to go to the caboose to see it for himself. Once he leaves, Jacuzzi and his gang enter the bloody room Lad came from. Their expressions are enough to tell how horrendous it is. Nick can't contain his disgust and has to run to the train window to puke. After he finishes throwing up, he notices a person clinging onto the outer side of the train. He informs the other 3 what he just saw and encourages them to take a peek. Upon seeing the person Nick is talking about, the horrified Jacuzzi screams that it's the rail tracer. Okay, so this time we go back in time again, not to 1 or 2 years prior, but a whopping 200 years. To the year 1711 precisely, when everything actually begins. The Advena Avis ship is sailing. It carries a group of alchemists, all longing to find medicine called the Cure-All elixir. Aboard this ship are some of the characters that we've known or heard about, including Misa, Ches, Szilard, and Huey. That night, Greto Avaro, Misa's younger brother, expresses his anxiety about the demon summoning ritual that will be performed by Misa in order to attain this elixir. He thinks that this whole thing about gaining immortality is nonsense. His girlfriend Sylvie Lauki agrees with him, saying that she's not afraid of being mortal as long as she can be with Greto. Meanwhile, in the dining hall, Szilard makes a ruckus by shouting and throwing a tantrum since he can't accept Misa's idea of summoning the demon, yet none of the other alchemists seem to side with Szilard. They think that as long as they can attain this legendary elixir, the means doesn't matter. In the end, things are finally prepared for the ritual. Misa gathers all the alchemists on board and then starts chanting, but even before he finishes the spell, the demon is already there, interrupting him and saying that he's always there if one's thinking about him, even without them saying it out loud. Misa hasn't even told the demon what it wants, but it already knows. It then decides to give the method to make this cure-all elixir to Misa and Misa only. The demon then hands him an enormous cup containing that elixir. Szilard becomes the first person to try it. After finishing a whole glass, he claims that the so-called elixir is a scam because he can't feel any difference. This makes the demon feel insulted. It slashes Szilard's head, killing him in an instant. But a few seconds later, Szilard's blood flows back to his body, and his head reattaches to his neck. In an instant, Szilard, who's supposed to be dead, gets back on his feet. The demon has proven that the elixir is legit. Having witnessed the elixir actually working, the other alchemists race to drink it themselves. Gretto and Sylvie also grab a glass each. They hesitate a little, but they ultimately drink it out of pressure. After making sure everyone in the room finishes their elixir, the demon announces the rules they have to abide by as immortals. First, if an immortal is tired of life and wants to die, they can ask another immortal to eat them. By eating, the demon means placing one's right hand on another immortal's head while thinking about wanting to eat that immortal. This is basically what Szilard did to Barnes. Second, once an immortal successfully eats another immortal, they'll gain the knowledge of the person they've eaten. Third, an immortal can also transfer their knowledge by placing their right hand on top of another's head and thinking about the knowledge they want to share. Fourth, it is forbidden to use fake names among the immortals. Lastly, if an immortal wishes to know the recipe of the elixir, they can ask the person who summoned the demon to transfer the knowledge. In this case, it's Miser. The next day, Szilard makes another scene because he can't agree with Miser for wanting to gatekeep the knowledge about the elixir. Apparently, after pondering all night, Miser believes that it's best for immortality to be kept among themselves. Every alchemist on the ship is also on Miser's side when it comes to this matter, except for Szilard, who's against it, and Huey, who doesn't have an opinion about it yet. When the night arrives, Miser makes a confession to Gretto. He admits that he's considering eating Szilard as he could potentially harm the other alchemists. He also transfers half of his knowledge about the medicine's secret to Gretto just in case. Later on, Miser sneaks into Szilard's cabin. When he's about to eat the sleeping Szilard, his friend Elmer suddenly shows up. Elmer tries to talk Miser out of doing it since he believes that Szilard will change one day. Miser himself feels something off. He opens Szilard's blanket and finds no one there. Unbeknownst to him, just a few moments earlier, Szilard came to get Gretto and ate him. He said it was Miser's punishment for wanting to gatekeep the medicine. As a result, he's gained half the medicine's secret Miser had transferred to Gretto earlier. Miser and Elmer run to Gretto's cabin only to find his clothes. And now, Szilard is targeting Sylvie. She begs for Szilard to stop as the old man places his hand on top of her head. But after a while, nothing happens. That's when Szilard realizes Sylvie only pretended to drink the elixir, meaning she's still just a mortal. Szilard is furious. Had Niall not shown up to slash his hand, he'd have killed Sylvie right there. Niall and Szilard end up fighting to kill each other. Meanwhile, Miser and Elmer run out of the cabin and find Sylvie crying on the floor. Elmer then ensures Sylvie that he'll convince Szilard to change his mind, although Sylvie thinks there's no point in it. On the deck, the alchemists have managed to corner Szilard. An altercation happens, causing Szilard to fall into the sea. His fate after that remains a mystery. It's time to go back to the flying pussyfoot again. Isaac and Miria are walking through the cars when suddenly, Isaac screams dramatically. Judging by his desperation, one might think he's made an unforgivable mistake, but no, he just forgot to buy a souvenir for Ennis. Miria isn't helping either. She ends up crying with Isaac over this. Somewhere at another corner of the train, Jacuzzi's gang has just spotted the rail tracer, but it disappears in an instant. The group decides to try to chase it. Jacuzzi, Nice, and Nick crawl on the roof of the train, while Donnie does the sweep from the inside. All of a sudden, Jacuzzi isn't the usual crybaby Jacuzzi we know. Once he's determined on something, he changes into a completely fearless man. After a while, the gang gathers back on the train. For their next move, they decide to split into two groups, Jacuzzi with Donnie, and Nice with Nick. Long story short, Isaac and Miria successfully reach the conductor's room. The funny thing is that their reaction is a lot calmer when finding two conductors murdered than when realizing they forgot to buy a souvenir. But they cry again after assuming Jacuzzi has been eaten by the rail tracer. As they're mourning for Jacuzzi, the man they assume has died runs toward them with Donnie. The four of them have a comical reunion before moving away from the crime scene and gather in a room where Isaac and Miria talk Jacuzzi into thinking that he can take care of both the Lemures and the Russos. In Dismal, Jacuzzi explains that he's not as magnificent as they think. He's just a moonshine maker who led 3 people from the Russo family to be killed yesterday. It started because the Russos killed 8 of his gang members, so he took his revenge by robbing 18 of the Russo family's business establishments in one day. Jacuzzi truly regrets his actions, as it made even more people fall victim. However, Isaac and Miria still try to convince Jacuzzi that he's a good guy. This makes Jacuzzi smile. After the talk, Isaac and Miria become determined to catch the rail tracer themselves, even if they have nothing on it. Seeing how optimistic they are, Jacuzzi finally assures himself and Donnie that they can do something as well. Now we leap into the year 1932, not long after the Flying Pussyfoot arrives in New York. Eve Genoard finds herself detained in an extravagantly decorated room. Around her are the Runorata's men. Suddenly, Gustavo enters the room to bluntly tell Eve that they're using her as bait to lure Gandor out. Not only that, but he also informs her of the fact that Dallas blackmailed him by using his father and brother's death. In her despair, Eve is abruptly reminded of an encounter she had 2 years ago, back in 1930. Eve is looking at Dallas's picture with tears flowing from her eyes. Then out of nowhere, she hears the voices of a man and a woman from her balcony. As you might have guessed, yes, it's Isaac and Miria. They've been spying on Eve, assuming that she's crying over her boyfriend. Curious, Eve approaches the balcony, catching the couple off guard. To defend themselves, the couple act tough and blatantly admit that they're robbers. By doing this, they hope they'll be able to scare Eve. However, it only creates the opposite effect because Eve finds them funny instead of scary. Feeling defeated, the couple asks Eve for her life story instead. The robbing then quickly turns into a relaxing sharing session in Eve's bedroom. Eve reveals that Dallas is not her boyfriend but her brother. She speaks highly of him, but Dallas has been giving her anxiety due to getting in a lot of trouble. He hasn't even gone home for a while. Eve believes that the misfortune that has befallen her family is caused by their wealth. After hearing Eve's story, Isaac and Miria give her a truly genius solution to stop being rich. They then excuse themselves from Eve's bedroom. Later on, they casually come back with 2 huge bags filled with the valuables they've taken from the Genoard's mansion. They believe they're doing the right thing by making Eve's house more secure. Before sneaking away in a not-so-sneaky way, the couple sternly reminds Eve that she'll be happy. Once they leave, Eve laughs again at their shenanigans. The next morning, Dallas arrives home. He wakes Eve up with a warm smile and invites her to play billiards later. All of a sudden, they hear people screaming from the lower floor, claiming that a thief has been there. Dallas then excuses himself to take a look. But then, when Eve is about to do a prayer, Dallas's attitude toward Eve utterly changes. He becomes rude, calling Eve stupid for praying. He admits that he only comes home for his grandfather's inheritance, which seemingly has been stolen by Isaac and Miria. In frustration, he slams the door to Eve's bedroom. Back in the year 1932, Eve wakes up in the middle of the night, still in the room where she's held captive. She looks around, seeing every man asleep. The door is unlocked. Without thinking twice, she uses this chance to run away. Little does she know that Rubik's watching her escape. But strangely, he does nothing about it. So ready to jump back in time again. After getting the information about the conductor's death from Jacuzzi, Ladd and his men finally arrive at the caboose. The young conductor's face is mangled to the point that he's unidentifiable. Literally, his whole face is gone. Ladd jokingly says that it might be June. Well, guess he's correct. Remember when the Lima conductor was threatening the young conductor with the rail tracer story, and then a gunshot blasted? This is how it actually goes. The moment the Lima conductor aims his gun at the young conductor swiftly tackles him, ultimately snatching the gun. He threatens the Lima back, and without hesitating, he pulls the trigger, killing him in an instant. A few moments later, June, who's dressed as a conductor with the uniform he gained from Tony, enters the conductor's room. The young conductor asks who he is and what's his intention. He's fully aware that June is a fake conductor, but June only runs in a circle without directly answering the conductor's questions. Having reached his limit, the young conductor announces that he's going to perform torture to gain answers from June. He opens the door to the balcony of the train. Strangely, in just a few seconds, he's gone in the dark. The perplexed June comes out to look for him, but suddenly the conductor's hand grabs his leg from below. It turns out that he's been hanging onto the bottom of the train. Slowly, he lowers June's hand until it touches the ground, breaking it with the train's high speed. Unable to bear it, June finally says his name. However, when asked where he's from, June still stays silent. So without mercy, the young conductor rubs June's whole arm against the ground. In the end, June gives up, and the conductor finally knows who June actually is and his intention. For the last question, the conductor asks June how he obtained the conductor's uniform. June casually answers that it's from the senior conductor he killed before boarding. The young conductor's blood boils hearing that. Tony is the person he looked up to and the one who taught him about conducting. To think that June killed him without showing a bit of regret makes him lose it. He smashes June's whole face against the ground until he becomes unrecognizable. Since he and June share the same hair color and similar stature, people might think he's the one who's dead when finding June's body. Later, he's back inside the train, bathed in the blood of the people he killed. He then announces himself a rail tracer from now on. the monster who will devour the Rousseau family. Meanwhile, the Lemures have managed to catch Mary Berriam thanks to Chain. They pass her to Natalie and inform her that they'll be safe if they see a beacon light on top of the bridge the train is passing tomorrow morning. They also won't hesitate to kill Mary if Senator Berriam refuses to comply with them. The senator himself is visiting Huey, the Lemures' great boss, in his prison cell. He tries to negotiate with Huey, asking him to convince the Lemures to give themselves up in exchange for providing Huey with good treatment. Surprisingly, Huey says that the Lemures are bound to fail. His daughter Chain has pledged full loyalty to him, so in case the Lemures break their loyalty, she won't falter. All of a sudden, Chain leaves the Lemures' cabin and climbs onto the roof of the train after looking like she's been given a signal. Somewhere else on the train, Chess has asked Lad and the Russos to follow him to a room. He acts cute and innocent for a second, but then he shocks everyone with his request. He wants Lad to kill all the passengers in the dining cars. Lad doesn't believe what he just heard. To convince Lad, Chess offers $200,000 as a reward. However, Lad doesn't see the point of fulfilling Chess's requests. He also quickly realizes that Chess isn't actually a child. Chess then mentions that he has tons of explosives stored on the train that are purchased by the Runorata family. So, if Lad helps him get rid of the dining car passengers, he'll try to persuade the Runoratas to look kindly upon the Russos. It doesn't stop there. Cheese also promises to detonate the extra bombs he has so that the Russos can run away immediately. But still, Lad doesn't fall for that kind of sweet talk. Done being messed with, he shoots Ches with his shotgun in the head twice, killing him instantly. He and his men then leave the room. But of course, Ches won't die. We know that he's an immortal who's drunk the cure-all elixir. Upon regaining his consciousness, Ches tries to think of his next move. It turns out that he's realized that there's another immortal in the dining car, since he could only introduce himself using his real name. He's so sure that this mysterious immortal will eat him, so he's desperately looking for them to avoid that. Ches then leaves the room, but unbeknownst to him, the rail tracer has been watching his interaction with Lad this entire time. He also witnessed Ches come back to life after being shot dead. Lad himself is walking through the cars when suddenly his men spot Chain standing gracefully with knives in her hands on the roof of the train. Not only his men, but Nick and Niece also sees her when they're trying to get across through the roof. Suddenly, Huey contacts Chain through their telepathic ability, asking her what's she doing. According to Chain, she's trying to protect the Lemures from the Russos. Chain herself knows that the Lemures might end up killing her and betraying Huey once they achieve the secret to immortality from Huey. That's why she's chosen to abandon speaking, to protect the secret, and she's willing to protect Huey at any cost, because he's her only family and the only one who loves her. Once the two stop communicating, Lad runs toward Chain to challenge her in a duel. An intense fight ensues. However, it has to stop when Lad foolishly gets caught on a swinging signpost, causing him to fall a few cars away from Chain. At the same time, Nick and Niece are suddenly caught by the Lemures. Meanwhile, in the Daily Day's office in 1932, a girl named Rachel arrives to report the flying pussyfoot incident to Nicholas and Gustav. Apparently, she's the girl in the working suit who was seen escaping through the window during the altercation in the dining car. She comes with her left foot injured and, as it appears, she works for Daily Days. Gustav is curious about what she has to say about the rail tracer, but Rachel doesn't really know what that is. She just vaguely overheard some people talking about this entity in the dining car, these people being Jacuzzi and the others. After sneaking out of the car, she crawled and clung to the bottom of the train. Then suddenly, a monstrous creature approached her. She claims that he was wearing a conductor's uniform, but Rachel couldn't get a good sight of him because the monster suddenly whispered to her, asking for a ticket. This made her crawl away in panic. Gustav is confident that the figure Rachel saw was Vino or Claire Steinfeld, the assassin hired by Luck. Based on the information acquired by Daily Days, Vino is like a ghost. He disappears so abruptly from a city and appears in another city without prior notice. His job as a train conductor allows him to pull this off. Vino was raised by the Gandor brothers' family after becoming an orphan. He later worked for a circus. That's why he has superhuman flexibility, speed, and body strength that contribute to him being an assassin. Vino is especially known for being ruthless. His victims are often found in horrible states with their bodies being completely destroyed and stuff. Apparently, that's the only way he can be satisfied with his work. Despite that, it seems like he still has a sense of justice in him. Gustav then asks Rachel how she got the leg injury. According to her, she broke into the room where the Lemures kept Senator Berriam's wife and daughter. She decided to help the two escape through the roof and told them to re-enter from the dining car. After that, she also helped free Niece and Nick, who were being detained by the Lemures. However, she was caught in action by a Lemur, so she had to flee in a hurry, resulting in her injuring her leg. In the middle of Rachel's explanation, Rubik suddenly appeared to bring her tea. This indicates that he's been a Daily Days spy all this time. Now the year is 1930. Dallas and his minions have just woken up after being injected with Szilard's incomplete immortality elixir. Szilard frankly tells them that he's going to kill them once he's done with them. And to make an example of it, he kills one of Dallas's minions with the eating method. By doing that, Szilard manages to find out that the elixir is in the hands of the Gandors. He transfers that knowledge to Ennis and orders her to release the other 3 delinquents so that they can be used to lure the Gandors. Later on, the 3 ruffians pay a visit to the Coraggioso to claim the box containing the elixir. They use their machine gun to take down all the Gandors on watch. However, one family member manages to take cover and kill the delinquents. As the surviving man is fighting for his life trying to call luck, the delinquents, whom he believes have been killed, come back to life and finish him for good. Realizing that they're actually immortal, the delinquents celebrate. They then leave the headquarters joyfully. Somewhere else, Isaac and Miria are discussing their next move. They think it would be too dangerous to take money from bigger-sized mafia groups, so they decide to rob the Gandors and the Martillos, which they consider the smaller ones. First, they start with the Gandors. They arrive at the Coraggioso at the same time Dallas is leaving. Upon seeing the box of elixir Dallas is carrying, Isaac assumes that it contains bribe money from the Gandors. Therefore, the couple decides to rob Dallas of it right there. The thing is that they still don't realize that Dallas is the same guy who had beaten them up earlier, although it doesn't matter, because in the end, they successfully distract Dallas with their silly skit and steal the box. Coincidentally, similar to how it occurred before, Ennis happens to be around the area and catches the sight of Isaac and Miria running away with the crate. Later on, the couple gets disappointed when they find out that the box isn't filled with money like they had expected. Instead, it contains alcohol, or so they think. Therefore, they agree to proceed with plundering the Martillos. They visit one of their stores disguised as a priest and a nun, totally not suspicious at all. Nevertheless, the clerk ultimately takes them to Martillo's secret fancy restaurant that can be accessed using the back door of the store. Inside, Isaac and Miria spot a dark corner of the restaurant with some holes in the floor. They approach it, believing that it's the location of the Martillo's secret office. Suddenly, the waitress of the restaurant frantically tells them to get out of there. It turns out that this event coincides with the time when the Don of the Martillos fires a shot to the ceiling to celebrate Firo's entrance into the family. The bullet accidentally hits Isaac, but thankfully he's alive. Firo and Miser go upstairs to check the situation. They quickly realize that Isaac and Miria are the couple they saw at the hat store. The next thing we know, the family invites the Gandor brothers as well as Isaac and Miria to have a party in their office. They serve everyone the elixir, which they have mistaken for alcohol. Outside, Firo and Miser are talking. Firo brings up Miser's wound that healed so fast earlier, but Miser says that he can't explain it yet. Suddenly, Firo catches a glimpse of Ennis running around the area. He quickly realizes that she's the one he's been looking for. After successfully chasing her, he finally returns the button Ennis has dropped. In the meantime, Miser returns back to the restaurant. He's sitting down peacefully when, out of nowhere, a mysterious man sits in front of him. This man turns out to be Szilard. Miser quickly tells the other Martillo men nearby to run away, afraid that Szilard will hurt them. But they don't listen because, according to them, Miser's enemy is their enemy. Each of them then proceeds to shoot Szilard. However, no matter how many bullets they fire, Szilard still isn't dead. As they demand an explanation from Miser about why that happens, Szilard shoots them dead using his machine gun. When all the Martillo men around Miser are down, Szilard pushes Miser away and opens the box that's supposed to contain the elixir. To his surprise, it's empty. In the office, the Gandor brothers offer their help as soon as they hear turmoil happening upstairs. Outside, Firo hears the sound of gunshots and rushes to come back inside, but Ennis somehow tries her best to stop him. Still, he insists on going. From the hole in the wall, he takes a peek and sees Szilard. He demands Ennis's explanation of who Szilard is and who she actually is. Ennis finally exposes everything, including the fact that Szilard and Miser are immortals, and the truth about the elixir. She also reveals that she's a homunculus artificially created by Szilard, solely to obey his orders. Knowing that makes Firo enraged. He thinks Ennis doesn't deserve that kind of life, so he invites her to go with him, promising her safety. Just as they have their first hug, suddenly, Dallas and his gang show up from behind them. They've arrived to retrieve the elixir. The year is 1932 again. Eve has just successfully run away from her kidnappers, the Runoratas. Gustavo wakes up and blames it on the Gandors for taking her away. Meanwhile, as Eve runs aimlessly on the street, someone suddenly pulls her into another car, again. But thankfully, this time, it's Elian. He expresses his apology for causing Eve inconvenience. He also discloses the fact that the Gandors are involved in Dallas's disappearance. Hearing that, Eve begs Elin to take her to the Gandors. Elan himself feels burdened by that request, but since he feels guilty, he ends up bringing Eve to the Gandors HQ. Upon arriving, the Gandor brothers are the first person they see there. Eve cuts to the chase and asks them about her brother's whereabouts. The brothers have mixed feelings about it, but in the end, they decide to give Eve the answer she wants. Later on, Gustavo pays the brothers a not-so-friendly visit. He accuses them of taking Eve. The Gandors themselves don't have to refute anything though, because Eve herself comes out to confront Gustavo and his men. Gustavo then shoots each of the Gandor brothers. But since they're immortal, they stand back up alive in no time. Berger proceeds to punch Gustavo in the face, knocking him out. After that, unexpectedly, the Don of the Runorata family himself arrives at the scene to demand the Gandors to hand over Dallas. Luck sternly refuses. Then Bartolo asks where is Dallas, now back on the flying pussyfoot. Goose abruptly orders his men to put Code Beta in motion, meaning to kill Chain on sight. Unfortunately, Lad overhears the two Lemures who are communicating with Goose. He kills one of them and threatens the other to give him the information regarding who they are and why they want Chain killed. Somewhere else, Ches is sitting alone while thinking about his next move, when suddenly, the bloody-looking Vino, or the Rail Tracer, approaches him. Ches is able to introduce himself, using a fake name, confirming that Vino isn't immortal. However, Vino can tell that Ches is lying. He knows Ches's real name, and the fact that Ches is immortal, after watching his interaction with Lad. To test it, Vino tries to choke Ches to death only for him to come back alive. Ches isn't faltered by that at all though. According to him, he's been through all kinds of painful torture performed by the person he once trusted, which is Fermer, another immortal who went aboard Advena Avis. Hearing that only makes Vino feel more challenged. He bites Che's fingers until they fall off and announces that he'll inflict pain beyond what Ches has experienced. A few moments later, Lad successfully catches up to Chain at the edge of the train roof. He confronts her about the fact that she's being betrayed by the Lemures and calls her too naive, accusing her of being used by Huey. He then declares his plan to kill Huey once the train stops. Chain still doesn't say a single word. The two then engage in a fight again. However, at one point when Chain is about to attack, she's stopped by Vino, who appears so suddenly behind her. After low-key flirting with Chain, Vino casually goes past the two. Although Vino doesn't initiate a fight or anything, Lad still feels offended by him, so he starts attacking Vino, and quickly it becomes a 2 versus 1 fight after Vino decides to side with Chain. In the meantime, Jacuzzi and Donnie arrive at the dining car, happily welcomed by John and Fang. They suddenly hear a blast coming from the first class. Jacuzzi thinks it must be a cue from Nice and Nick, so he orders Donnie to go to the freight train and search for the package they're targeting while he goes alone. This time, Jacuzzi is fully determined to not be deterred or cry for the sake of Nice. Simultaneously, Nice is having fun throwing mini-bomb after mini-bomb in the first-class car at the Lemures, while Nick has to remind her to go reunite with Jacuzzi as soon as possible. They try to escape using the window, but unfortunately, Goose Perkin blocks them off. The good news is that Jacuzzi immediately comes to their rescue and successfully brings both of them away. As soon as they're safe, Jacuzzi tells Nick and Nice to meet Donnie in the luggage room, while he prepares himself to face the Lemures alone. Before he goes, Nice gives him her last grenade. A few moments later, Jacuzzi and Goose face each other on the train roof, ready to have their boss match. Goose uses a flamethrower to attack Jacuzzi. Jacuzzi counters it, attacking back using his machine gun. Although he runs out of ammo at some point, he doesn't falter. On the other side of the roof, Lad is still fighting with Chain and Vino. Lad goes berserk after finding out that Vino is the one who killed Dune. But still, no matter how hard Lad tries, he can never defeat Vino. Ultimately, Vino uses his trump card to use Lua to make Lad jump off the train willingly. Lua suddenly shows up behind Vino, trying her best to climb onto the roof. She cries and begs for Lad to stop fighting. Then, in a swift motion that happens in a blink of an eye, Vino jumps and grabs Lua, swings and ties a rope to a hook the train is passing, and ties Lua's neck with the other end of the rope. It's only a matter of time until the rope goes taut and forcefully takes her off the train. The enraged Lad now has no choice. He hangs onto the rope with one arm and jumps with Lua in his other arm. The friction between his hand and the rope is so bad that his fingers are cut, and the rope ultimately snaps. Lad and Lua then spend their last moment on the train with a 1-second romantic quality time before they collide with a water tower. The next thing we know, Lad lies on the ground beside Lua with his left arm half gone. Vino, who's gotten rid of a nuisance, now approaches Chain to ask her some questions, such as what's her relationship with Huey. Even though Chain only answers the questions by shaking and nodding her head, Vino is able to grasp that Chain wants to protect Huey no matter what it costs because he's her only family. Then, to Chene's surprise, Vino proposes marriage to her out of the blue. He believes that it's a great solution to her problem will be gone because as soon as they get married, Vino will be her family. The way Vino says it sounds like a joke, but he's actually being dead serious. Chain herself is too flabbergasted to give any reaction. Suddenly, from another part of the train, a lemur starts shooting them. Since Vino has to deal with him, he tells Chain to carve her answer on the roof there and get off once they cross the nearest river. Meanwhile, Ches is stuck on the bottom of the train and can't do anything. Vino presumably put him there after their interaction in the cabin. In despair, Ches reflects that it might be his karma after everything he's done, especially after he ate Fairman. Suddenly, Isaac and Miria spot Chi's arm protruding from the bottom of the train. Isaac tries his best to help him by holding onto the train door with one arm and extending his other arm toward Ches, who's just woken up after going unconscious for a moment. The first thing Ches sees is Isaac's bleeding hand healing itself in an instant. This leads him to come to the realization that Isaac is immortal. Cez goes frantic, afraid that Isaac is going to eat him. He swerves Isaac's hand, which causes Isaac to lose grip and fly away. But still, no matter what happens, Isaac can't let go of Ches. Unfortunately, the three of them end up flying away anyway since the wind is just too strong. Isaac still tries his best to attach his lasso to the grip of the train door, but to no avail. Suddenly, Rachel appears and successfully catches Isaac's rope. However, due to her leg injury, there's not much she can do. As they're about to fall off the train, Vino shows up from the roof and heroically snatches the rope, saving all of them. Shortly after, he arrives at the luggage room where Donnie is meddling around, and without giving any explanation, he tells Donnie to just pull the rope with all his might. Once Donnie realizes what's happening, he pulls the rope as hard as he can with his superhuman strength. But despite being strong, Donnie kind of lacks control. He accidentally sends Isaac, Miria, and Ches fly to the other side of the train, interrupting Jacuzzi and Goose's fight for a brief moment. Jacuzzi himself is cornered after running out of ammo. Goose is prepared to use this chance to attack him with the flamethrower again, but as it appears, the tool doesn't work properly after the rope accidentally broke it. Now is the time for Jacuzzi to make a run for it. He slams Goose's face with his own head repeatedly. Suddenly, a mass of blood gathers from behind Jacuzzi. Goose frantically tries to prevent the blood from coming near him using his half-working flamethrower, while Jacuzzi uses this opportunity to roll the grenade to him, taking advantage of the fire he lit up. In just a split second, a large explosion occurs. It's noticed by Nick, who jumped from the train earlier with their stolen goods. However, it's still not enough to defeat Goose as he still tries to fight back. But before he can do anything, Jacuzzi pushes him off the train and ultimately causes a second explosion from the friction between his flamethrower tank and the ground. Nice comes to get Jacuzzi, relieved that he's safe. They hug to celebrate their safety and success in retrieving the treasure while the sun rises in the background. However, they still have one enemy left, which is Vino, aka the Rail Tracer. With a grenade in his hand, Jacuzzi stands up, ready to face him. But strangely, Vino gives him a sign to stop and then leaves to enter the train without saying a word. As Nick and Nice remain confused, Donnie turns up to reunite with them. It's then revealed that the mass of blood was running towards Ches. The couple thinks that the blood is the Rail Tracer who's coming to swallow Ches, so they innocently hug him as tight as possible to protect him. A few moments later, Ches wakes up. He still thinks that Isaac's going to eat him, so in order to prevent that, he's resolved to eat Isaac first. But to his surprise, as he extends his right hand towards Isaac's head, Isaac holds it and cries out of relief that he's safe. Miria too. Isaac then promises Ches that he can count on him to protect him. Realizing that Isaac and Miria are actually good people who don't mean any harm, Ches sobs. Soon after that, Jacuzzi, Nice, and Donnie call them from the edge of the train, delighted that everyone is safe. The year is now 1930. Dallas and his gang are confronting Fyro and Ennis. As they're threatening the two, the Gandor brothers suddenly appear behind them. Luck demands an answer from Dallas regarding how the gang acquired their guns, to which Dallas makes up a random story, but of course Luck can't be deceived that easily, showing no mercy. Each Gandor brother shoots a member of Dallas's gang, killing them all, but apparently, they don't know that Dallas's and his minions are immortal. Ennis tries to explain it to them, but she's a tad too late. Within no time, Dallas and his gang are revived again. They turn the table by shooting the Gandor brothers, Fyro and Ennis, dead. However, luck doesn't seem to be on their side because as soon as they try to run away, they're immediately hit by a car, specifically Sillard's car. At the same time, in the restaurant, Miser almost accepts his defeat and lets Sillard eat him, but Sillard is suddenly distracted by the sounds of gunshots outside, so Misa takes this opportunity to run away through the window. Szilard tries to chase him, but just as he exits from the window, he gets run over by his own car. Apparently, Isaac and Miria just stole Szilard's car, and after hitting Szilard, Isaac drives it backward, hitting Dallas for the second time. Ennis wakes up and sees Isaac and Miria being threatened by Szilard. Likewise, the couple also notices Ennis, and they beg her to save them. Szilard isn't happy about the fact that Ennis knows the couple personally. He then orders her to kill them while he faces Mesa again. However, Ennis doesn't have the heart to do that. Instead, she turns around to stab Szilard, preventing him from eating Misa. Szilard becomes furious. With a method that only he knows, he makes Ennis unconscious at that very moment. Angered by that, Ennis, Isaac and Miria, they throw stones at Szilard. But that's not Szilard's biggest problem right now, because behind him, Firo, the Gandor brothers, and the whole Martillo family have appeared to confront him. Szilard finally realizes that everyone there has drunk his elixir of immortality. Afterward, the family drenches Szilard's head with gasoline and burns him for fun. In Szilard's weakest state, Ennis wakes up and hurriedly tells Firo to put his right hand on Szilard's head and thinks about eating him. Firo successfully does that. And all at once, Szilard, along with his hundreds of years old of knowledge, are seeped into Firo. He's now gone without a trace. Firo still has a hard time processing what just happened. He proceeds to check up on Ennis, who's requesting him to eat her, as she feels like she doesn't have long to live. But of course, Firo refuses to do that. Instead, he touches Ennis's head, and within no time, she's healed. The knowledge he gained from Szilard apparently teaches him the method to save Ennis. Once the commotion is over, Misa apologizes the Martillo for giving them the burden of being immortal. However, in contrary, the Martillo are happy about it. The family then continue their party. While the Martillo is celebrating, the Gandor brothers capture Dallas and his two followers. Dallas himself is surprised seeing the brothers still alive, oblivious about the fact that they've drunk the perfected version of the elixir. So as a way to make Dallas's gang pay for his sin, the brothers trap them in barrels, fill the barrels with cement, and drown them at the bottom of Hudson River. The year is 1932. We're back at the Gandors HQ. Luck has just finished explaining what actually happened to Dallas in front of Eve and Bartolo. Eve then asks what the Runoratas would do to Dallas if they managed to salvage him, to which the Dawn answer that they will examine him for research purpose. The Dawn also promises to let Eve meet Dallas if they successfully pick him up from the river. Eve then decides to entrust the family to help Dallas escape from his misery. However, Ellen questions Eve's decision. The fact that she's siding with the organization who killed her family doesn't sit right with him. But to Bartolo's defense, he didn't order anyone to kill them. Rather, Gustavo killed them on his own accord. Speaking of Gustavo, the man himself just wakes up after going unconscious. Without letting Gustavo finish his sentence, Bartolo instantly shoots him dead as if it's nothing. With this, Bartolo successfully proves his sincerity to Eve. And in the end, Eve willingly follows the Runoratas. Still in the year 1932, the Flying Pussyfoot has safely arrived in New York. Isaac and Miria have a joyful rendezvous with Firo, Ennis, and Misa. The couple then introduces Chess to Ennis as their souvenir. Yes, they present the boy as Ennis's little brother. Despite being taken aback, Ennis approaches Ches and greets him warmly. Misa, who's known Ches for around 200 years, approaches him as well. Through Ches's inner monologue, we know that Ches came all this way to New York to eat Misa, but to his surprise, Misa strokes Ches's head softly and tells him that everything's all right. Ches can't hold his tears any longer. He hugs Misa as he sobs and tells him how badly he missed Misa. Meanwhile, a train officer approaches Luck to relay a message. Later, the Gandor brothers can be seen meeting with Vino at one corner of the sidewalk. He declares that he's no longer a train conductor, and he now goes by the name the Rail Tracer. Then he says that he wishes to finish the job from Luck quickly because he's meeting someone who might marry him. As it turns out, Chain followed Vino's instruction, carved her answer on the roof of the train. In her message, she says that she's waiting for Vino in Manhattan. The year is now 2001. For more than 70 years, Isaac and Miria have continued their job as a robber. One day, while committing their usual shenanigans, it comes to Isaac's realization that they haven't aged a bit. Now that Isaac mentions it, Miria realizes this as well. They then scream frantically, but they quickly become cheerful again after thinking that it must mean they've been born anew every day, which also means that every day is their birthday. Yeah, that's Isaac and Miria for you. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.